We are here at Media Clubroom's Value Train podcast. Welcome, Gina. So, Gina, you've had a very eventful year. You've had multiple gold awards in both Resolute Communications and your social goodness work. As we wrap up the year, what stands out the most? Because this year, ultimately, you had your second edition of your ASEAN China India Youth Leadership Summit. What stands out as the most memorable highlight?
I think it was actually challenging because last year was actually our first, and then there's a lot of learning curve. And then this year being our second, though you actually have some learning from last year, and somehow you have to do it better because there's actually supporters that actually have followed you for the second year, right? Sponsors who actually follow you for the second year. And you need to actually kind of like prove it to them that, it's like we are not just doing just that, the normal. We have actually to improve ourselves and do better from what we have actually done before and what is actually from the learning. How can we actually be better? So I think this year itself, the challenging part was at the start of all this kind of summit, we have to actually kind of like look for the suitable country partners to make sure that they actually create the platform in the country rounds to actually allow the students or you from all universities or all walks of life that is able to come in to participate. It's like not only just from the top universities. This is actually one of the criteria. And then, of course, it's like the challenging part is basically it's not just like one event. It's
Right.
like 12 events plus one major event.
Right.
So that is actually a very, very challenging time. It takes us about like 6 months to organize all of this. And then that's actually another set of challenges because we have to actually arrange all their flights, accommodation, getting their visa, making sure that their passports, their validity and everything. So yeah, the whole thing leading up to it was like kind of a very challenging.
Right.
Apart from this, I also have my regular day-to-day kind of a work that I need to actually kind of like focus on. Yeah.
So when you talk about your regular day-to-day work, that's Resolute Communications, right? So like an events company and also a media agency, to do this humongous campaign with 8,000 participants. I mean, I've been there. It's humongous, right? So why youth in particular?
It's a little bit personal because I have two boys, right? This year they are 12 and 16. The 12 is going to the teens.
Right.
So I always love to actually find opportunity or platform for them to be exposed, to be able to interact with, people from all walks of life, to expose them to the different kind of culture, experience, and stories that they can actually learn from. So when I met Eng Han last year, and he shared with me this idea, I thought it was actually a fantastic idea. And it's like having this kind of platform. It's something that instead of like looking for it, I'm creating one. Doing it, it's like, of course, a different story because it was like really challenging, right? But I think the kind of satisfaction, the kind of achievement that you do after when you see that so many of this youth thanking you for, the fantastic, the incredible platform that you've created and what they have actually kind of learned from it after that 6-day summit. It was really, the kind of feeling was really different.
Indescribable.
Yes.
I've seen all those posts. Right? It's really indescribable. So I want to
Yeah.
go back a little bit to what you said earlier. So you have two boys, and when I have spoken to you personally before, you told me about your do good or mission trips that you've taken them along. Why this interest in doing good, or why do you feel that pull to do good? Because you've done it for multiple years. Maybe you can share a little bit more about what you've experienced so far, and why do you want to pass this on to your boys to see it for themselves, because they've been on your mission trips before.
I believe in giving back. And I'm also a strong believer of like, it's actually blessed to be able to bless. And if let's say we are able, we try to give, lend a hand or do whatever we can within our means. And in our society, I don't want my boys to grow up cold. Of course, it's also very difficult to, sometimes when we teach our parents teaching kids, right? Hey, you have to be kind, you have to be empathetic, you have to be sympathetic, all this kind of thing. You cannot just tell them.
Yeah, actually that's true, because especially when you think about Asian parents, they don't really, their core values, giving and kindness isn't part of it. So I think that's quite special coming from you.
Yeah, actually, to me, I felt that that's actually the most important. I'd rather actually have have two boys that are kind rather than, it's like maybe academically they are actually fantastic, but they are not a good person. So to me, that I feel as a parent, I feel as a mom. And this kind of thing, you cannot be a one time. You have to actually keep instilling. You have to keep doing it, that it becomes a habit. So I started this when like my older one was like 3. And I was pregnant with the second one. So we started to do all this kind of outreach. And then as they get older, So we started to go overseas for mission trip. So by doing so, it's also letting them to see that the less privileged in Singapore versus the less privileged in other countries or developing countries is totally different. But you have to put them in that situation, right? Where you're actually being exposed to a lot of people who have much lesser.
Because you actually bring them along. You don't just like show them photos.
No.
Wow.
They have to actually really roll up their sleeves and do whatever work that I do or they do, everybody do. So like a recent trip, we went to Cambodia.
Right.
So it was actually like a full 3 days of like outreach where we visited, families living in cemetery. It's like, how can you imagine like living with the dead, right? So we actually went there to cook a meal, for them and giving out some bread and, it's like simple stuff like that. It's so easy to accessible.
Right.
But then these are luxury to them, So I think for them to actually see such, it actually kind of like will soften them and change their perspective of life.
I think that's beautiful for them because, they've seen their mom walk the talk. And if you see like someone that you have no choice but to look up to do good things, then you want to do good things as well. So when you do all these outreach programs and they've been along with you, do you see it reflect in their daily lives, like how they treat their friends, maybe how they are in school?
I think not just actually in school, with their grandparents, with the people around them, even with us. They will thank us for things that we buy for them. And I think with their friends, with their peers, they are always stepping up. I mean, I also received texts from the teacher that they will say, oh yeah, like my elder one, he will step out to actually help to do this, to do that without asking. So it's actually a very, it's like it becomes instilled in them that they will actually step up whenever they can. My son actually used his school bag like from primary 1 until it's like the sling, the handle was like.
Does he get made fun of?
I was actually a bit concerned too. Sometimes it's like my elder one, he was actually having this wallet from primary 1 until P6. So he was actually going into secondary school. So I was actually a bit worried because it's like the very kiddish wallet. And I said, hey, you change to something a little better because you're going to secondary school. I can get you maybe like a nicer wallet, like a super dry. He says, don't have to lah. It's not spoiled. Wow. So it's that kind of mindset. To him, it's like something that is still usable. Why should I be changing it?
I think that's beautiful because that stems from him being secure with himself.
Yes.
And security in children comes from how their parents validate them.
Yeah.
So you should, because you're doing a good job. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
This is the first time Gina has agreed to come on anything that we filmed, and I've asked her so many times, and she was always put someone else on the spotlight, which I really admire. So now your boys have also reflected that kind of humility, which is so beautiful because you don't really see that in kids nowadays. Like just now Eng Han was saying, kids nowadays, they can be have a very me mentality, which is so nice to see that your kids reflect what you have taught them. Gina, coming back to the summit, right? And just now when Eng Han was on here, he said you guys have had many sleepless nights and he mentioned your name. Is this all worth it to you?
I think during the process of it, you tend to question yourself, why am I doing this? I could have just have a be able to sleep and enjoy life a bit.
Have a normal job.
But yes, why am I actually suffering? Why do I have to go through this whole thing, right? But I think when you're actually doing it and when you see the outcome of it, or when you see how this youth are benefiting from it, you forget all this challenges or this kind of things that you have actually gone through. The number of sleepless night, I think leading to it that 1 week, I didn't even sleep.
Right, because I would message Gina and she'll reply me at 4 a.m. So I'm like, this girl never sleep.
Yeah, but I think, like I say, the outcome of it, and when you see all the feedback, the post that's actually on social, thanking the organizer, myself and Eng Han, we've created with the partners and sponsors, even Media Clubroom coming in to support the podcast and everything. I think this is actually really great.
When I did the podcast, I also interviewed the kids, right? And then they were very cute. They follow me on Instagram. Then I follow them back. And I see that because when you break them out into teams, they've not met these kids before.
Yes.
And then they go back. And then they are from different countries.
Yes.
But then they'll fly and meet each other.
Yeah.
And then some of them start their own sustainability podcast.
Yes.
When you started this, did you ever foresee this kind of change?
We know something will happen, but we do not know what will happen because it's different people will react differently, right? So, but I mean, from last year to this year, we see the different kind of chemistry, different kind of, the team coming together. And some is like we have our alumni coming back from last year. And they said, oh, they are still hanging around. They are still actually, on WhatsApp chat and everything until this very day, which is actually like, wow, you feel that they've actually made friends.
For life.
Yes.
Yeah, when they caption, they're like, we are now friends for life.
Yes.
Which is so beautiful. You never expect this to come out from
Correct.
something like that.
Exactly. So this year, the first day I told them, a lot of y'all will be complaining. Why? I want to stick with my, my country mates. I want to stick with my friend. What do you want us to, put us into a different team? I just want to stay with my... I said on the last day, you're going to actually be crying and say, oh, I miss my new friends.
Now I have to go back to my country.
Yes. And, it's like the first day when you said that, everybody is like, oh yeah, this is what Gina said, On the last day, I think when they were leaving the, the message on the post, they say exactly what Gina had said on day one. It's like now they miss their friends so much.
With something so huge as the summit, I'm pretty sure you're handling thousands of people. So as an events organizer, what was your hardest challenge so far? Because the logistics is like a nightmare to me.
Yes. Okay, last year was harder. Okay, this year I think we were a little bit better because we actually have our alumni stepping up to pay it forward, and then they actually kind of like has been actually very active in their respective country, doing even like events, online webinar and stuff like that. And then when we actually have this year summit, they took responsibility and helped to manage some of these countries' participants. So it actually make our task easier compared to last year, because last year was also our first. And then this year with all alumni feedback, again, we know that we're going to actually do better next year, because from all the feedback, how can we actually improve ourselves? So with this year I would say, yes, it's tough, but I think it's going to get better every year, slightly easier every year, because the community, the alumni will start to grow. And then when it actually starts to grow, everyone will start to want to step up. And then, how they actually seeing themselves benefiting from it, and they will actually want to actually kind of like also give back.
So this year you had it easier. What was so challenging last year?
I think last year was also because we don't know what to expect. And I think, we have never handled like 12 country hackathon, and then after that having everyone flying in, the finalists flying in, coordinating, arranging all their flights and then their accommodation to their meals, and then, up to the day-to-day program. But I think maybe because through some experience that I have as an event organizer, and I think between myself and Heng Han, we kind of like partner very well, because he took care of all the programming side, which is like, getting all the mentors, getting all the speakers and stuff like that, while I take care of the very on-ground logistics. So it was actually a perfect kind of both of us coming together, each taking care of the different thing of the summit. So it's not as bad, but I think we did really well. That's why we actually continue out this year, and then having more sponsors coming in to support the summit.
With an idea so crazy and so big, did you ever get rejected? Like everyone's like, no, this is crazy, Gina.
Oh, sure. Last year when we first went to speak to some of the sponsors, like, are you sure you're able to do this? Because it's like they have not seen, what can actually be done. And it's like, hey, is it like you ask us to sponsor? Are you sure you're gonna get this amount of students flying in? How are you going to pay for the tickets? How are you going to actually do their, manage their accommodation? How are you going to actually manage, such a big, huge number of youth, coming in together to do this, and then it's across 6 days. Are you able to manage? So there's actually all kinds of doubts and questions that we have. But I think between myself and Inghan, is like, I think we can do it. Then we also have like really supporters and sponsors who believe in us and say, yeah, I think this is a very great idea, and let's try it out. So we sold the idea. And we're lucky because we actually have all these partners and sponsors that believe in us.
Do you think it's because of how well you guys pitched the idea?
Of course, it could be. But sometimes it's like you must actually come from the heart. Because when we want to do this, if you are just looking at it from a commercial side of things, definitely...
just to look good.
Yes, because it's like when you talk to people, and then when the person has that kind of passion, you can feel that energy.
I can feel it, yeah.
The fire, the kind of energy. People who feel it.
Where do you find this energy?
I think maybe for myself, I'm actually not someone that will actually keep very still. And I like to find challenging stuff to do. Apart from work, in my personal life, I also do a lot of different challenge every year. So I think maybe that is actually the part where after I do this personal part of the thing, and I believe that I can actually do on the business side.
Right.
And this is actually how I actually kind of balance up. And with that kind of challenge, it will actually... Instead of you're doing the same old thing, pitching the same old projects to the same regular base of clients. You want to do something that's actually extraordinary. So I think that's actually the part that maybe keeps me going.
Now, when you think about it, how do you want people to remember Gina?
Personally, I would think I lead a very exciting life. Okay, so
You do lead a very exciting life. It's like no breaks for you.
yeah, so I always find in between, like between my busy schedule, I will find challenge, like maybe I'll go and climb a mountain or I'll go and do a marathon. I just finished Stanchart without any training.
Wow.
Yes, and then before Stanchart, I just came back from Mount Fuji.
You hiked Mount Fuji?
Yes. So it was
okay.
like because I found a window of 5 days, so I flew in there.
Alone?
And then, yes, I usually do solo hike.
Right.
Earlier part of the year, April, I already done Annapurna Base Camp.
No
So-
way.
So it's like I like to actually challenge myself, to shock my body into that kind of like, yeah, I think I can do it.
What is it about mountains that you like? I mean, this is the casual part of the podcast.
Okay, so I think it's not just mountain. I do hikes. I do different challenges. It's more of challenging myself, mentally, physically, getting out, into the unknown to rough it out, and then have that kind of detox, and detach from your kind of a busy work schedule and go off grid.
Do you think it's because of the nature of your work? I mean, you're in events, you're constantly surrounded by people asking you for things, forever talking to you. The weight on your shoulders is quite a lot. Is that, maybe the reason why you would like to go off grid so nobody can touch you?
It's not exactly the reason, but I felt that, it's like this kind of challenge is very good for your mindset, growth mindset.
Who put this fire in you?
I always joke about like in your 20s, you have you have time, you have a lot of energy, but you got no money because you're just coming out to work, right? And then in your 30s, you'll be like building your career, having family. So you probably don't have energy. Money, yeah, you're probably like spending on your, your family and all. Time and all this, you will definitely don't have. And then in your 40s, that's where you like, your kids are a little bit older, career stable, and then you have a little bit of time, you still have a bit of energy. It's the time that you should do it. So I was like looking at the 4, the 4, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, then what should I do? I'm turning 40. So, that gives me an inspiration that the 4 is like, the line up is actually about scaling the height.
And the distance.
And then the distance,
Yeah.
and then the depth. So, I started to do things like climbing mountain, going marathon, ultra marathon, go skydiving, go diving. And then the 0 is actually about the giving back. So this whole thing actually kind of like structure my entire 40s.
Do you think your personal life bleeds into your work?
Definitely. Who you are and actually personally will actually affect how you actually do your work. If you're actually someone who's actually very contented, you won't actually look for something that you want to do something very different in your career. You just want to actually have a very normal, stable job. But people who seek challenge, and who wants to actually kind of rough it out, it's like marathon at the finish line. When you're actually doing it, you're like, why am I signing up for this? Why do I want to do this? I'm not going to do it
dying.
again. Yes. It's like along the way you're running, it's like, I'm not going to do it again. But at the finish line, you're like, okay, I did it. Okay, good job. After a week, then you tell yourself, say, not that bad lah. I'm going to do it again.
Right.
So it's almost like the kind of,
You seek the dopamine you get from finishing the race.
yes.
That's what Inghan said. He says he looks for the dopamine again.
Yeah. It's actually funny. I think that actually very much reflect, like exactly what we do for the Youth Leadership Summit.
I'm pretty sure there are a lot of, be it entrepreneurs or people who want to do good, I'm pretty sure are inspired by you and Inghan and want to do something that is, their purpose or their calling, right? So what is one piece of advice you would give to someone who is struggling right now to do that?
I think the most important thing is find your own passion. What actually really you want to do, what inspire you to do, and when you're actually doing it, do you want to inspire others?
When I was talking to Inghan, I was saying they discovered, empathy. They discovered how to be sensitive to other cultures.
Yes.
Do you ever foresee that it would be like that? I mean, because the theme is on sustainability, right? And then these kids are now like, their worldview is now changed. And I was saying that it makes them better people because now and now you cater to them.
Yes.
You serve them instead of you always being served.
Yeah.
Did you ever foresee that empathy would be something the kids would take away from the summit?
Do I actually foresee there is? I think somehow there will be, but it's just that, we wasn't expecting that it will be such a big impact. Majority of them, when we actually speak to them, you can actually feel that they actually gain from it.
Right. I'm pretty sure there will be a ripple effect also, because now they will go back to their own countries.
Yes.
Then they'll teach their own friends. Hey,
Yes.
do you know when I was in Singapore, I learned this about different cultures.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
Because now kids, they can be...
The
can be
other
kids lah.
influence, yeah, I think it's also we are quite happy when a lot of times we say, hey, we're actually telling all our friends like must join this, ASEAN China in the Youth Leadership Summit. It's something like transformative. It's something that is actually so different from the other summit or any youth of the program that they have actually joined. So I think that's kind of like set us very different, because they actually experience from it and they share it, and they actually wanted their friends to be part of this in the next edition.
Right. So
Yeah.
Gina, last question. If you were to do it all over again, will you? And what will you change?
Of course. I mean, it's like definitely we're already discussing about 2025, right? We'll definitely do it again. I think what we already have done is like we already went through, we speak to all our alumni, we spoke to all our participants, asking their feedback. We did a survey, a very thorough survey to actually see what works, what didn't, hear their feedback, and then already planning out what we can actually do better. So we're definitely, 2025 edition is definitely a goal, and then we're already speaking to our partners, it's like giving them a heads up.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Gina. It was
Thank
super
you.
fun. Is there anything else you want to say?
I think it's like basically hope whoever that's listening to this, this is actually a very good platform. If you are actually someone who really look into, youth empowerment, supporting youth, their ideas, because they are actually our new generation, right? So reach out to us and then see how we can actually collaborate.
Beautiful, Gina.